How's it going, YouTube? My name is Optima, and today I'll be bringing you all a brand new series on this channel called Around Runeterra. In Around Runeterra, we'll be attempting to bring you all a digestible, summarized recap of what's been going on in the competitive Legends of Runeterra scene. Hopefully this allows some of you to follow up with the competitive scene a little bit better, and also allows us to spotlight tournaments within the community so that you guys can get involved in these tournaments, and also showcase the players who are performing well in these tournaments to bring them to the masses a little bit more. If you guys enjoy this series, you know you can like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Nevertheless, thank you for watching. Let's hop right into it. First up, we're going to discuss tournaments that happened recently within the competitive scene, and then we'll transition into talking a little bit more about ladder, some spicy decks, and then future tournaments that will be happening. So let's get to those tournaments. First up is going to be none other than Brazil's Raise Your Flag series. This one was won by Jito, Jito, and he was able to win with triple control, and that's going to be triple SI, triple Shadow Owls. That's going to be Heimer Jace, Kindred Viego, and Darkness. Darkness is a deck that hasn't shown up a lot in tournaments so far or on ladder, so it'll be interesting to see if Darkness starts to rear its head a little bit more as we get into the latter parts of this Awakening expansion. I would highly anticipate that, and I also would anticipate the same for Heimer Jace, which is another deck that was brought in high numbers to the seasonal, but we just haven't quite yet seen that on ladder or in tournaments. Nevertheless, Jito brought those old good decks and they showed some good results for him, so shoutouts to Jito for winning the Raise Your Flag tournament. Another recent tournament for Brazil as well was the one hosted by Lotus Esports. It looks like this one was won by a player named Peace. Peace was able to win with Gwyn Noxus, Pirate Aggro, and Kindred Nasus. So no surprise here with these decks. They're all just really standard strong decks within the meta right now, so make sure you have a plan for beating them when you go into those tournaments. Next up is going to be the Mystic Shot Podcast EU tournament that they had this past Thursday. The top four consisted of really solid players such as Salty Simon, Smooth Swolius, Glor EUW, and Nawatix. It was eventually taken by Nawatix, who brought a lineup of Jace Timelines, Akshan Lee, and Zoe Yi. The main deck I want to take away from there is going to be that Zoe Master Yi deck. We haven't seen a ton of Master Yi in ladder or in tournament, so to see a Zoe Yi deck take a tournament, especially on the EU Shard where there's some great players, is quite interesting. I would love to see a little bit more Master Yi moving forward so that we could get a better perception of how good this champion actually is. It's a little hard to know as of right now, and I think we need more time. Furthermore, the runner-up was going to be Smooth Swolius, who brought a lineup of Trundle Timelines, Zombie Ash, and Akshan Nasus. As cool as Akshan Nasus is, I really want to just focus on Zombie Ash, which is a deck that actually got buffed this patch thanks to the inclusion of Quietus within the game. Frostbite makes the enemy's highest attack unit when it's coming from Ash go to 0 attack. This then means you can be using Quietus to remove some really important threats, whether that's really big followers or a champion that your opponent has. So Ash into Quietus sounds like a pretty good combo that can make you maybe allow her to be a little bit more meta relevant. So worth taking note of for sure. Moving along, we get into our tournament on the NA Shard, the Runeterra Rumble series. We had number 7 just this past Sunday, and our top 4 consisted of Sonic Holic, Broken Ball, HDR Successor, and Peru Cream. Really talented players, and the winning player was rocking a little bit of an interesting lineup. Broken Ball was able to take the tournament with Fizz Nami, Akshan Sivir, and Pirate Aggro. So the main deck I want to take away from that is Akshan Sivir. Fizz Nami, even after watching Broken Ball play it, still has me believing it's just a worse version of TF Nami. However, with Akshan Sivir is a deck we've seen in the past that was popularized by Riot Dev Rivenzu using Flurry of Fists on a leveled Sivir to just win the game, or on a Ruin Runner to allow some OTKs. Double attack plus overwhelm is just really good. Nevertheless though, it's not the pink region deck that we've seen pretty much any of. This was kind of our first experience with this deck at all so far within the Awakening expansion, so it'll be really interesting if that really is a true meta deck, or is Broken Ball just that cracked and able to win with some of these more interesting brews, considering that he's an EU player who is playing on his NA account. Nevertheless, really showcases just sometimes the skill difference between a player like Broken Ball and a lot of other competitors, because Nami, Akshan Silver, Pirate Aggro is kind of the only standard deck you can really say is just a strong deck standalone. So it'll be interesting to see if we see more of this from Broken Ball. Sonic Holic brought Akshan Lee, Ezreal Kennen, and Nami Ionia, rigging a triple Ionia lineup. This is really strong in the meta right now, and it shall be interesting if more players start to go towards those triple Ionia lineups or the double Ionia lineups with a random third deck. Other things to take note of was that Nami Ionia performed really well overall, so did Pirate Aggro, so did both Timelines decks, Jax Timelines and Trundle Timelines, and lastly, Ezreal Kennen had a good tournament as well. So those are decks that you really do need to ensure that you have a game plan for when you are going into these tournaments, because they will be there. Moving along to the ladder. On ladder, we're seeing in the North American shard lots of Timelines, Pirate Aggro, and Egg Kennen decks. Those are going to be the most popular choices. Pirate Aggro is looking to be the most popular and also is showcasing the most prowess, as tons of players are in the master rank all on Pirate Aggro. EU is also filled with tons of Pirate Aggro and players who are performing well with the deck, but there is a increase in Nami Ionia players. Lots more of that, as well as a increase in the WhatamI deck as well. APAC is going to follow a similar suit as both of the other two regions. However, there is an even further increase in WhatamI pilots, but Pirate Aggro has a strong presence there as well. So on ladder, Pirate Aggro seems to really be showcasing a lot of strengths. So it may be interesting if the meta starts to shift so that players have a better game plan to deal with these pesky Pirate Aggro decks. Before we get into spotlighting some of the spicier decks, let's first talk about where some meta decks are currently trending. Decks that were brought to the seasonal tournament recently, but aren't really showing up right now in the early parts of the meta. First up is going to be Pirate Aggro, and obviously that deck is still dominating. Next up is going to be Akshan Kaisa, which is actually seeing quite a huge dip right now in the early parts of the Awakening expansion. Something that can easily change. Kaisa is still an amazing champion, and with new Shurima cards out there that are also good, I definitely expect to see more Kaisa down the line. Just right now, players are actually not choosing that deck as their choice, and that's probably due to a little bit of fatigue, so we'll see if that changes in the near future. When Katarina Noxus is still dominating, we have seen a small dip from Evelyn Viego, but it is being brought in a little bit more tournament lineups. We'll see if that starts to shift on ladder as well. Kindred Gnosis still really strong on ladders, and players are using it, and it is being brought quite consistently in tournaments as well. Darkness and a Vagar, that deck has seen a huge dip as of right now. Nevertheless, that's probably going to change really soon as well. Darkness is still very strong, as well as Heimer Jace, another Shadow Isles deck that is really strong that we're not seeing a ton of. So once again, probably due to just fatigue of some of these decks being relevant for a while, so players are opting for some other options and messing around with the new champs, but I expect to see more of that moving forward. Poppy Tark is going to be another one that was brought in high numbers to the seasonal, but we haven't seen quite that much of it yet. Scouts being another as well, and lastly, Trundle Tryndamere Control is going to be another deck that we're just not seeing a ton of, but we'll probably have a bounce back here soon. So those are the decks to kind of keep in mind as we move along into the latter parts of this Awakening expansion that are currently trending one way, but that's not necessarily the way it'll stay. Let's get into some of those spicy decks though. First up is going to be WhatamI's Lee Sin Zed Demacia deck that he was at rank 10 with. He isn't currently at rank 10 anymore. He has dropped since then, but he was rocking out with this pretty spicy build for a bit and was showing some decent results with it, so definitely worth checking out. Next up is going to be Jhin, who's rocking out with Bard Norra and reached rank 27 on the EU server. There's some clear synergy between Bard and Norra, so I could definitely see Bard maybe making his way back into the meta through a champion like Norra. So I look forward to hopefully seeing more of this. Next up is going to be BlowMyNexus's Viktor Yi deck that he was able to reach rank 23 on the NA server with. We haven't seen a lot of Master Yi, so to be able to see one at rank 23 is pretty exciting. So it'll be interesting if that is something that can uphold for a while and we can actually get a more proper perception of how good Master Yi is. Next up is going to be Sword of Akasha, and they were rocking out with Kennen, Ahri, Demacia. So Ahri, Kennen are no strangers to each other, very much so, two very synergistic champions that we've seen together a lot in the past. However, even with the recent rise of IONIA as a region, we haven't quite seen a lot of Ahri yet, but if Kennen's beat is currently good, then Ahri is likely good as well. And with that recent buff Kennen got for those marks to do 3 damage, it really has breathed new life into the champion, and that should spell good things for Ahri. So this one is a deck that's using Kennen and Ahri alongside each other, but goes to Demacia so that you could get Rally as a very strong way of finishing games for Ahri Kennen. So it'll be interesting if Ahri starts to show up a lot more moving forward. Next up, we got Pynex AG, and they were able to bring a Norra Gnar Demacia deck all the way to rank 10 on the Apex server. And this is going to be a very interesting build. You just generally don't see Shellfolk in Demacia, but that's what we got here. And rank 10, not anything to scoff at, so really solid stuff from Pynex, and I look forward to seeing if this is a new Shellfolk variant or if this is just an anomaly. Furthermore, we get to GiveAPACMoreSupport. That is their actual in-game name, and they are rocking out with Jax Zed all the way to rank 13 on the APAC server, and that's really cool in my opinion. I think Jax is one of the cooler recent champions, at least in my personal opinion, so I very much look forward to giving this deck a try. Really cool stuff there from GiveAPACMoreSupport. Next up is going to be Khoa on APAC server as well, reaching rank 14 with Viktor Karma. This one's really interesting because there's just been a lot of negativity about the latter turns in Runeterra, that games aren't going to turn 9, turn 10. Obviously Karma's an enlightened champion, so she wants the game to go to turn 10, but if IONIA is truly back, then there should be some Karma in there, and it looks like the APAC region is not shying away from giving Karma a real shot. But this was the highest deck with Viktor and Karma, and utilizing the brand new Back Arley Barkeep card that allows all your new cards to cost 1 less. So maybe this is a card that can give Karma a little bit of life, so that she can be a real threat again within the meta. Next up is going to be Branch of Turtwigs, and they were ranked 32 on the EU server, so very competitive server, so still really good. And they're using an interesting take on TF Go Hard. We got TF Elise, GP Go Hard, 222 of each champion, so really interesting deck. Throwing in GP and Dreadway to make it a little bit more offensive for this meta is really interesting to me. Dreadway isn't a follower, a really strong follower that we just haven't seen a lot of, because that same kind of sentiment players are saying where games aren't going late, so it's hard to play these late game followers like Dreadway. But nevertheless, Branch of Turtwigs making it happen, and I definitely look forward to seeing if this is a deck that can stick around, as I was always a huge fan of TF Go Hard, so really cool to see. Next up is going to be an ABG, Always Be Gaming, going to be Mist Assassin, and they brought Draven Cat Kine all the way to rank 41 on the EU server, so really solid stuff. Not a deck I've pretty much seen at all anywhere else, and yeah, Kane has been played with so many other champions, but Draven and Cat in Noxus is just not something we've really seen up to this point, so definitely looking forward to seeing a little bit more from this deck. And last, to finish things off, is going to be a little bit of a lower rank. We got Aya with Zombie Ash. It's going to be Ash, Gwen, Shadow Isles, and they only reach rank 58 on the APAC server, and APAC server is going to be the least active server. There's only 89 Masters players compared to the 109 and 108 of EU and NA, so not the greatest achievement, but I definitely wanted to highlight this deck just because of the fact that we discussed it previously with Smooth Swolius lineup in that EU Mystic Shot podcast tournament. It got a good buff. Quietus is quite the significant buff for this deck, and Gwen's also a really good champion to play alongside Ash, so maybe there's something here that we can actually turn into a really relevant meta deck, because Quietus really is solid with Frostbite. So I look forward to hopefully seeing more of this. I'm a huge fan of Ashe, so I'm hoping the hopium, I'm riding it, because Ashe is a cool champ that deserves to be in the meta in some shape, way, or form, and maybe she needs one for the buff, but for right now, hopefully Quietus can be it. Now let's take a look at the upcoming tournaments within the Legends of Runeterra community. It does look like the Mystic Shot podcast is going to run their Tuesday NA tournament today for you all, so make sure to go check that out and to go sign up for that tournament. They're also going to be running their Thursday EU server tournament, so get over there, go join up. One of the few tournament series we have for EU, so it's great to see support. And when it comes to upcoming tournaments, you can actually just go to Santupi's website, and he pretty much has any tournament that's already been made on his website with the date on when exactly it will be going down. So definitely make sure to go check that out and show him a little bit of support, because he really does help with a lot of advertising for the competitive Legends of Runeterra community. That's going to wrap things up though, so once again, thank you so much for watching. If you want to subscribe, like, all that good stuff, it means so much, but isn't expected at all. Just your viewership means the world to us. Hope you enjoyed this series. Let us know what you would like to see more of or less of within this little video series, and we'll try to do it for you all. Thank you for your time. See you in the next one.